Welcome to Pasadena Monthly. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guest, Pasadena Unified School District Superintendent, Dr. Elizabeth Blanco. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena media news briefs.
The City of Pasadena has begun the oral history component of the historic project for the city's 710 Stub Master Plan. The oral history portion aims to capture and acknowledge the diverse stories of community members displaced by the SR 710 freeway construction project. The online survey will close on Sunday, June 30th. To fill out the survey, use the QR code or go to bit.ly/oralhistoryinput. Pasadena Sister Cities' 2024 Executive Leadership Team was sworn in at a ceremony held on Friday, May 10th at Pasadena City Hall's council chambers. The newly elected committee brings a wealth of experience and a shared passion for building international connections and fostering cultural exchange. Lena L. Kennedy will lead the organization as president, with Martin Gordon serving as vice president, Elizabeth Ellis serving as secretary, and Joanne Forte serving as treasurer. I'm honored to lead Pasadena Sister Cities as we embark on a new chapter, said President Lena Kennedy. The Pasadena-based nonprofit Young and Healthy has been awarded a Covered California Navigator grant to provide free health insurance enrollment to the Pasadena community. Young and Healthy connects underserved children with free medical, dental, and mental health care through its volunteer doctors and helps families with insurance enrollment and navigation and provides referrals to local services. We are so thrilled to be recognized by the state of California as a leader in insurance enrollment for the greater Pasadena area. This grant assures the community that we will continue to serve as a skilled, compassionate, and trustworthy resource for their high-quality healthcare needs, said Executive Director Ellen Kramer. To learn more about this or other Young and Healthy services, visit yhpasadena.org or call 626-795-5166.
Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. The city has a budget. The council unanimously passed the $1.14 billion operating budget for fiscal year 2025 beginning July 1st, which includes more funding for homeless services and the public health department to make up for state budget cuts in those areas, and $360,000 annually to train firefighter paramedics. A city staff report said that the budget, which is about $100 million less than last fiscal year's budget, was developed with cautious optimism and a recognition that inflation and other economic factors are impacting the pace of revenue and expense growth differently. The council also approved the Economic Development Division's strategic plan, which will guide the division's priorities, programs, and services for the next 5 years. 2. This month, the council also approved an increased water rate by a 7-to-1 vote, effective July 1st. Pasadena Water and Power is switching to a tiered by customer class structure in which price increases will vary based on customer class, e.g. single-family residential, multifamily residential, or commercial, as well as water meter size and usage volume. Water bills for a small-sized family will increase by about $8, a medium-sized family by about $14, and a large-sized family by about $29. Some commercial customers will see a reduction in their bills. Customers will see an increase of 13% in 2024, 12% in 2025, 9% in 2026, 8% in 2027, and 7% in 2028. PWP said the increases are necessary to keep up with the cost of serving water because expenses are exceeding revenues. Factors driving the increases include increased water costs from the Metropolitan Water District, higher pumping and treatment costs of local groundwater, increased capital investment in infrastructure projects, and reduced sales due to the city's conservation goals. PWP is looking to secure grants and other sources to help reduce and supplement the rate increases. 3. The Charter Study Task Force submitted its final report to the council this month, including several recommendations for charter amendment ballot measures for November's election. The task force recommended filling council vacancies by appointment within 75 days only if less than 2 years remain on the term. Otherwise, a special election would be held or if the council fails to make an appointment in time. Also, in the case of a mayoral vacancy, the task force recommended establishing a mayor pro tempore who would be selected from among the council until the next general election. Regarding the selection of vice mayor, the council would select someone from among their ranks to serve a one-year term and exercise the mayor's duties during absences. The task force and the council should consider seniority and the benefit of rotation of the role during the vice mayor selection process. The task force also recommended setting campaign contribution limits at $1,000 per person for council races and $2,500 for mayoral races. The task force did not make a recommendation on the timing of mayoral elections. As it is, the mayor is elected at the same time as council members from districts 1, 2, 4, and 6, which forces those members to give up their seats to run for mayor, unlike council members from districts 3, 5, and 7. The council seems to be split on whether to add the task force's recommended term limits for mayor and council members to the ballot, which, if approved, would limit them to serving 3 consecutive 4-year terms, then an additional 2 terms after taking a break of at least 4 years. The council will decide next month which charter amendment topics will be added to the November ballot. They have until August 9th to do so. The council also already voted to add a charter amendment measure to the November ballot that would change how representatives are selected for the Fire and Police Retirement System Board. 4, this month the council approved a $1.1 million contract with Belfry Contractors for the One Arroyo Trail project, which will improve miles of trails throughout the Arroyo. The project groundbreaking ceremony will be held July 13th. Work will begin in August and is expected to be completed by the end of the year. 5, the city held its first community open house to gather ideas and feedback on the 710 Stub Master Plan, which is being put together by consultant Perkins Eastman and will serve as a guiding document for the redevelopment of the 50 acres that Caltrans relinquished to Pasadena 2 years ago. The 710 was also the topic of the West Pasadena Residents Association's annual meeting this month. Ian Lockwood, who helped lead the Connecting Pasadena Plans community meetings on the 710 Stub in 2014 and 2015, and Charles Loveman of Housing Heritage Partners delivered remarks and proposed ideas for transforming those 50 acres. Also, south of the Stub, many of the nonprofit organizations that rent properties from Caltrans have received initial notice of solicitation letters from the State Transportation Agency, asking if the tenants plan to purchase their properties, and whether at fair market value or a lower value in use price, thus beginning the sales process that has already begun for many of the residential tenants. 6, the City Council voted to honor and recognize the local R&B group Troop in a meaningful way, but decided in a split vote not to approve the staff's recommendation to change the name of Dayton Street between Fair Oaks and Raymond Avenues in between Central Park and Castle Green as Troop Way, due to the historical significance of Dayton and the lack of a street renaming policy. They directed staff to study the issue and return within 90 days with more options for honoring Troop, such as a plaque, a statue, an installation that tells their story, or even the original proposal to rename Dayton. 7, the city attorney has dropped all charges filed against hotel workers who were protesting outside the Hilton Pasadena Hotel as part of a long-running labor dispute that has since been settled. The charges stem from the city's noise ordinance, parts of which unions have said violate the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Mayor Victor Gordo said the city will revisit its noise ordinance in the coming weeks. 8, City Manager Miguel Marquez has appointed Helen Morales, who currently works for the State Department of Housing and Community Development, as the new director of the city's Rent Stabilization Department, and the city has leased office space for the new department. She begins July 1st. And the city's new rental registry system is now fully set up and configured for internal review and testing. Also, the council approved 6 recommendations by the Rental Housing Board to add charter amendment measures to the November ballot that would, among other things, remove deadlines from the charter for implementing the rental registry that have already passed, align eviction rules with state law and a Superior Court decision, and allow the board to remove members for repeated or significant violations of the board's code of conduct, such as absenteeism, improper disclosure of private information, or misuse of city resources, among other things. 9, the California Public Utilities Commission has rejected a proposal by AT&T that would have allowed the company to discontinue landline phone service in much of the state. Many residents in Linda Vista and San Rafael neighborhoods were concerned about the proposal because they rely on landline service in emergencies and when internet and cell reception is poor. AT&T has said it is now working on an updated proposal that would exempt rural areas and urban blocks that do not have at least 2 alternative service options, among other changes. And 10, Pasadena's 2024 homeless count report showed that the city's homeless population was the exact same as last year, 556 people. However, it also showed that among those people, there has been an alarming and significant rise in those who are fleeing domestic violence and those who are falling into homelessness for the first time. Let's welcome our guest, Dr. Elizabeth Blanco, Superintendent of the Pasadena Unified School District. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Dr. Blanco has over 30 years of experience in public education. She has served as interim PUSD superintendent since July 2023, deputy superintendent since 2022, chief academic officer since 2028, and chief of specialized instructional services since 2017, and executive director of special education local plan area, special education and early childhood from 2009 to 2012. Dr. Blanco was chief of special education services from 2012 to 2017. She began her career in education as a classroom teacher in the Roland Unified School District. So, Dr. Blanco, you're just appointed as the permanent superintendent of PUSD. You're serving as interim for about a year. Tell us about your story, your career, how serving as a teacher helps now inform your service as an administrator, as a superintendent.
Well, I'd have to admit that my favorite job in my career was being a classroom teacher, being in the class with the parents and the students and really, on the ground every day. Through that experience, I took leadership roles on in the different schools that I worked at and was eventually, an assistant principal, a principal, a director, executive director, assistant sup, and a chief, and now superintendent. Mm-hmm. So I think, I want to remember that the most important people are our students and our teachers, and they're the ones that can really make a difference for the students and improve student achievement. So recently completed 100-day plan at the beginning of last year, and got to hear from a lot of our educators and other staff that are on the ground. Then I was able to come back to the central office and talk about what we heard, and move the district forward with a culture of width and togetherness. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Chicago, in the city, and moved to the suburbs by the time I went to school. And I think it's very important that all students have access to all kinds of programs, that we don't predetermine where they're going to end up. I had some experiences like that, and in spite of that, I still ended up getting a doctorate at USC and here today. So I think some of those experiences also inform who I am as a person and as an educator. When I think back about why I might not have been successful in high school, a lot of it had to do with connecting with adults in high school, even though I had a very stable family and home values in my home and a lot of support, I still didn't connect with the educators. So that's, my passion and vision is to make sure that all students feel a sense of belonging and have success when they're in the public education system. Mm-hmm.
What is the status of the district's facilities master plan and the asset management plan? What's the district thinking of doing of surplus sites such as Linda Vista Elementary and others?
So the purpose of our asset management plan is to evaluate all of our properties that we own in Pasadena, Sierra Madre, and Altadena, and try to generate revenue because we'd rather look at revenue enhancement as a way to address any budget deficits that we have, as opposed to taking programs or services away from students. Sure. So we don't have a particular plan for each site. We really wanted to make sure we have a comprehensive package from the evaluators before we talk about individual sites.
So that'll be play out over the coming months and years?
That will be played out over the coming months. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk a little bit about it at our board meeting on Thursday, the first steps that we're taking. And then I expect we should have the report by early fall, and then the board can make some decisions for long-term use of property.
Great, and then also tell us about the fiscal stabilization plan that the district's currently considering for the next fiscal year. And when does the Budget Advisory Committee you're convening begin to meet, and what's their mandate?
So the Budget Advisory Committee is going to help us look at criteria of programs that are working for students, programs that we might want to consider doing in a different way. It's kind of like adapt, adopt, or abandon, what's happening. The fiscal stabilization plan is necessary because we have a structural deficit in our budget, and so it's a then problem, not a now problem, because it happens in the third year of our budget cycle. but the county requires us to be thinking about how you're going to address it before it happens. So as opposed to cutting $38 million all at one time, if you cut a little at a time, then it compounds over the 3 years. And the committee is going to be made up of community members, staff, administrators, and we will, do some prioritizing and make some recommendations to the board.
And what do school districts need to combat declining enrollment and the other related budgetary issues? How can districts generate revenue, in addition to reducing costs?
So one of the ways is looking at the assets that we have to see how we can use them to generate revenue for the programs and students that we serve. Declining enrollment is something that's happening across California, particularly in the San Gabriel Valley. There are lower birth rates and housing is very expensive here. So it's not something that's unique to Pasadena Unified. What is unique for us is that we do have large contingency of students that may elect to go to private school or to charter school. So one of our strategies is to make sure that we give them a private education at a public school price and attract students from inside the district and outside the district that might not have the opportunities for specialized programs such as dual language, our college and career pathways that are really all at industry standard, our STEM, which is science, technology, math programs, STEAM. We're very big on the arts. We received probably close to $40 million in magnet funds. So we've been able to really create experiences that you wouldn't normally have in a public education system for our students. So all of that helps. TK, early education, preschool for all, has been slowing down our declining enrollment. We had projected a much larger decline. It was cut in half by the opening of our all-day TK programs, which are at no cost to parents in the community.
And tell us about the proposed school facilities bond and parcel tax that will be going to the voters in November, if I'm correct. How much will each generate, and what will the funds go towards?
So, we're very fortunate that we have a lot of support from our community, and we are implementing Measure O right now, actively implementing Measure O to fix our facilities. But when we looked at the needs, they were over $2 billion. Wow. And so this bond was kind of a drop in the bucket for what our needs are compared. And then through the pandemic, we really learned that having the most updated technology is very important for our students to become 21st century learners, and we were able to address the pandemic in ways that other districts were not able to do because we had a one-to-one tech equity project. Every student already had a device. But those devices are we're getting old, and our teachers also needed new devices. So the bond helped us with refresh. We're also able to put interactive boards into the classrooms and change our technology in terms of security systems throughout the district, change the door locks for teachers, security cameras. So this bond is going to help us finish, some of the work that we started and identified as a need. Our buildings are old, many of them are historic landmarks, and we have to preserve that part about them, but we can modernize the inside and have more flexible grouping and modern furniture for the students. And some of our magnet schools have been able to purchase that, but not all of the schools. So it will really help us make sure that the facilities look great. And the difference between the bond and the parcel tax and why we need both is the bond is for facilities and the parcel tax is for the general fund. And this will give us an ability to increase compensation for our staff through the parcel tax.
So it sounds like both of those pieces are pretty critical for PUSD's future, right?
They are, and I know that we've been supported greatly in the past, and I'm hoping that we will come out the same way. Yeah,
and PUSD recently added a student assembly and a student council, which has some student representatives on the school board itself.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we started out with the student think tank because we really wanted to have our students have agency and hear the voices of students and how they were experiencing PUSD. And we talked to them about having one of the representatives from our student think tank become a student board member. And they spent about a year studying different possibilities and really decided that they didn't think there might be one student that could represent everyone. So they came up with this model. It's the first like it in the state, where they've created an assembly, and it includes students at every school, high school. They discuss the board issues with the representative or things on the agenda before the rep comes, and then the rep rotates and represents all of their voices.
Wow, interesting. And I believe you've encouraged the board to allow for more student feedback on teachers as well, right?
We talked about that, and I think it's important that the teachers know who the student is giving them the feedback. So I feel there should be something identifiable, because we all come from different walks of life and different backgrounds, and if there's just anonymous feedback, the teacher, that's not really giving them enough information. But it was the students that came up with the idea of giving feedback to the instructors.
Gotcha. And what educational impacts did the pandemic have on students, and how are PUSD students doing academically today?
Well, we just finished graduation, and we have students going to colleges all over the country. We have an amazing map that shows where students go in all the different states and universities that was produced by our foundation with us. So that's always a great, marketing piece for people to know where PUSD students end up. I think we were visiting our summer programs the past couple weeks. We do have students that are making up some of their classes that they needed to after they experienced the pandemic. Some of the students had a little slower start. Some students had, social challenges coming back to school. So we have really ramped up our social emotional supports to students. We have a wellness teacher at every school, in addition to all of the, making up classes. We have enrichment. There are students in every form of the arts, every form of music, sports. Visited the Freedom Schools this morning and read a book to the students. So I think they're, full force into engaging and wanting to be engaged in school again. And there are supports for any student that still might be recovering from the pandemic, as well as adults in our system that are recovering from the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's a few school board seats up for election this year, the bond and parcel tax on the ballot, the fiscal stabilization plan, the facilities master plan, the state budget deficits, and that it's a very transitional stage right now. All these pieces coming into place. How do you see the future of the district over the next few years? What's your vision for the district, and how can the community help support and realize that vision?
So we're very fortunate to complete a strategic plan the year before last with a new vision, a new mission, and I think our vision continues to be to transform the educational system and empower our students to be successful, right? And so that's where everybody's going in the same direction. I've really tried to promote a culture of equaling the playing field for all voices, from students to teachers. We have a roadmap advisory council, which will also serve as the steering committee for the superintendent's budget advisory council. And I think we can only get better. The help that we need from our community is to actually come out and visit our schools. And I was glad that you were telling me about this studio, because I was thinking we could produce some great videos in here, or have you come on out. And I think I would invite the community to come anytime. There hasn't been a single time in the 10 years that I have been here that they haven't been impressed with what they see. Principal for the Day is another activity we engage in, and so many people say, if I would have only known. So I feel like within the community, maybe we're the best kept secret, but when outside of our community on a state and national level, we are held in well regard and model status in many situations. So I think helping us change negative perceptions from the past and really understanding who we are is what I would like the community to do to help.
Great. Well, Dr. Blanco, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming to speak with us and tell us about the district. Really appreciate it.
Again, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much. Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1886 when Pasadena incorporated as a city, becoming just the second city in LA County to do so. One of the main reasons it incorporated was because many in the community wanted to get rid of or regulate saloons. The city of Pasadena celebrated its 130th birthday last week. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Monthly. Tune in every fourth Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Drop me a line at jchapman@cityofpasadena.net. We'll see you next time.